Maya Patel stood outside the glass doors of Dragon's Den Martial Arts, clutching her car keys so tightly they left marks on her palm. The building looked bigger than it had in the photos online. Through the windows she could see people in white uniforms moving with grace and power that made her stomach flip. What was she doing here? The divorce papers had been finalized 3 months ago. 3 months of figuring out how to be a single mom, how to pay bills on a librarian's salary, and how to explain to her 7-year-old daughter why daddy wasn't coming home anymore. Her therapist had suggested taking up a hobby, something just for herself. You need to rebuild your confidence, she had said. Maya had thought about painting classes or maybe yoga, but something had drawn her to martial arts. Maybe it was the late-night news stories about women being attacked in parking lots. Maybe it was the way her ex-husband had made her feel so small and powerless during those final months of their marriage. Or maybe it was just the crazy idea that learning to fight might help her feel less afraid of everything. She pushed open the door, and immediately the sounds hit her. The sharp crack of fists hitting pads, the shuffle of feet on mats, and the occasional shout from an instructor. The smell was different too, a mix of cleaning supplies and sweat that somehow didn't seem unpleasant. You must be Maya, said a voice behind her. She turned to see a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and calloused hands. I'm Sensei Williams. Ready for your first class? Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. She had practiced this moment in her car, but now all her prepared words seemed to have vanished. Sensei Williams handed her a white uniform that looked enormous compared to Maya's small frame. Changing room is right over there. Don't worry about feeling awkward. Everyone starts somewhere. The changing room was small and plain with wooden benches and a mirror that had seen better days. Maya struggled with the uniform, which seemed to have way too many strings and ties. When she finally emerged, she felt like she was wearing a tent. The pants dragged on the floor, and the top hung loose around her shoulders. The main training area was larger than it had looked from outside, with thick blue mats covering most of the floor. About 15 people were scattered around, stretching and practicing moves. Maya immediately noticed how different they looked from her. Most wore belts that were brown or black, and they moved with a confidence she envied. Everyone, gather around, Sensei Williams called out. We have a new student joining us today. This is Maya. A few people nodded politely, but Maya caught some exchanged glances that made her cheeks burn. She could practically hear what they were thinking. One more beginner who would probably quit after a few weeks. So Maya, Sensei Williams said, what brings you to martial arts? The question she had dreaded. Maya cleared her throat. I wanted to try something new. For confidence, I guess. And maybe fitness. Her voice sounded smaller than she intended. Derek Stone, a tall man with broad shoulders and a black belt around his waist, stepped forward. His belt had 3 white stripes on it, which Maya had learned from her online research meant he was a 3rd-degree black belt. Impressive and intimidating. How much experience do you have? Derek asked. His tone wasn't unfriendly, but it wasn't particularly warm either. None, Maya admitted. Complete beginner. Derek nodded slowly, and Maya caught him looking at Tyler Brooks, another black belt who seemed to be Derek's regular training partner. Something passed between them, a look that made Maya feel even more out of place. Well, let's start with basics, Sensei Williams said. Maya, stand here next to Rebecca. She gestured to a teenage girl with a green belt who gave Maya an encouraging smile. The warm-up was harder than Maya had expected. Simple jumping jacks left her breathing heavily, and the stretching revealed just how inflexible she was compared to everyone else. When they moved into basic stances, Maya found herself struggling to keep her balance while others flowed naturally from position to position. Horse stance, Sensei Williams called out. Feet shoulder-width apart, squat down like you're sitting in a chair. Maya tried to copy what the others were doing, but her legs started shaking after just a few seconds. She looked around and saw people holding the position with ease, some even carrying on conversations while maintaining perfect form. How long do we hold this? She whispered to Rebecca. Usually about 2 minutes to start, Rebecca whispered back. 2 minutes felt like 20. Maya's legs were on fire, and sweat was starting to drip down her forehead despite the cool temperature in the dojo. She tried to adjust her position and lost her balance, stumbling forward slightly. Sorry, she mumbled, not sure who she was apologizing to. Derek was watching her with what looked like amusement. When she caught his eye, he didn't look away. Instead, he said loudly enough for others to hear, It takes time to build up leg strength. Some people pick it up faster than others. There was something in his tone that made Maya's face flush with embarrassment. It wasn't what he said, but how he said it, like he was already writing her off as someone who wouldn't last. The rest of the class focused on basic techniques, punches, blocks, and simple kicks that looked easy when others demonstrated them but felt clumsy and awkward when Maya tried. Every time she made a mistake, which was often, she found herself apologizing. "Sorry. I'm not very coordinated," she said after missing a block completely. "Sorry. I'm still getting used to this," she said when her kick went in the wrong direction. "Sorry. I'm probably slowing everyone down," she said during partner drills when she couldn't keep up with the combinations. Tyler Brooks ended up as her partner for the last exercise, and while he was patient, Maya could tell he was holding back his natural speed and power to accommodate her complete lack of skill. It was kind of him, but it also made her feel like a burden. When class finally ended, Maya was exhausted and more than a little discouraged. She had imagined feeling powerful and confident after her first martial arts class. Instead, she felt clumsy and out of place. As students began filing out, Derek approached her. "How did you like your first class?" "It was good," Maya said, though her voice lacked conviction. "Harder than I expected." "Martial arts isn't for everyone," Derek said with a shrug. "It takes a certain type of person to stick with it. Especially at our level here. We train pretty seriously." Maya nodded, not sure how to respond. Was he trying to discourage her? Or was he just being honest about what she was getting into? "I'll see you next week," she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Derek smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Sure, if you decide to come back." As Maya changed back into her regular clothes, she overheard Derek talking to Tyler near the front desk. "Think she'll last more than a month?" Derek was saying. "Probably not," Tyler replied. "She seems nice, but this might not be the right fit for her." Maya pretended not to hear as she gathered her things and headed for the door. Sensei Williams called out a goodbye, and Maya waved back with what she hoped looked like enthusiasm. In her car, Maya sat for a moment before starting the engine. Her whole body ached, and she could already feel tomorrow's soreness setting in. Maybe Derek was right. Maybe this wasn't for her. Maybe she should find that yoga class or painting group instead. But as she drove home to relieve the babysitter and help her daughter with homework, something stubborn stirred inside her. She had felt powerless for so long, in her marriage, in the divorce, in trying to rebuild her life. She wasn't ready to give up on this just yet. Besides, she had already paid for a month of classes. Might as well get her money's worth. 3 weeks had passed since Maya's first class, and she was starting to find a routine. Tuesday and Thursday evenings, she would drop her daughter Lily at her mother's house, then drive to the dojo with a mixture of determination and dread in her stomach. The soreness from those first few classes had faded, replaced by a different kind of ache. The slow burn of muscles that were finally being used properly. She had gotten better at some things. Her horse stance could last almost a full minute now, and she could throw a basic punch without losing her balance. Small victories. But they felt huge to someone who had spent the last few years feeling like she couldn't do anything right. What hadn't gotten better was the atmosphere in the advanced class. Maya had asked Sensei Williams about joining a beginners group, but the schedule didn't work with her job at the library. The evening advanced class was her only option, which meant training alongside people who had been doing this for years, while she was still figuring out how to tie her belt properly. Derek Stone had made it clear that this was a problem. It started small. During partner drills, when students were supposed to rotate and work with different people, Derek and his usual group, Tyler Brooks, Lisa Chen, and Kevin Rodriguez, would somehow always end up working together. This left Maya partnered with whoever was left over, usually someone who looked annoyed about getting stuck with the beginner. "Sorry," Maya found herself saying constantly. "Sorry I'm slow. Sorry I messed that up. Sorry for not getting it right the first time." Then came the accidents. During a footwork drill where students moved in a large circle around the mat, Derek managed to bump into Maya 3 times in one class. Each collision sent her stumbling, breaking her concentration and making her feel clumsy all over again. "That's where you're going," he would say with a smile that didn't match his tone. "Got to stay aware of your surroundings." Maya apologized each time, even though she was pretty sure she hadn't been the one out of position. The comments were harder to ignore. "Man, it's really important to maintain the standards in this dojo," Derek said loudly during warm-ups, when Maya was struggling with push-ups on her knees while others did them on their toes. Some places let anyone walk in off the street, but we've always been serious about martial arts here. Tyler nodded in agreement. Yeah, it's not like those strip mall karate schools where they just take your money and give you a participation trophy. Maya pretended not to hear, focusing on her modified push-ups and trying to ignore the heat in her cheeks. She knew they were talking about her. Everyone knew they were talking about her. Sensei Williams seemed oblivious to the undercurrent of hostility. She was a good instructor, patient and encouraging, but she often worked with the advanced students on complex techniques while leaving the lower ranks to practice basics together. This gave Derek and his group plenty of opportunities to make Maya's life difficult, without the sensei noticing. During the 4th week, things escalated. The class was working on self-defense techniques, and Sensei Williams had paired everyone up to practice escapes from wrist grabs. Maya found herself partnered with Lisa, a brown belt who usually ignored her completely. "Grab my wrist," Lisa instructed, her voice flat and unfriendly. Maya reached out and gently took hold of Lisa's wrist, the way she had seen others do it. "Harder," Lisa said. "How are you supposed to learn anything if you don't make it realistic?" Maya tightened her grip slightly. "Come on, you're supposed to be an attacker. Actually grab me like you mean it." Confused and wanting to be a good training partner, Maya gripped Lisa's wrist firmly. Lisa immediately executed a sharp twisting motion that sent a spike of pain through Maya's arm and made her gasp. "There," Lisa said with satisfaction. "That's how you deal with someone who grabs you." Maya rubbed her wrist, which was already starting to show red marks. Was it supposed to hurt that much?" Lisa shrugged. "Self-defense isn't supposed to be comfortable. Maybe you should toughen up if you want to train with us." The next week brought a new level of exclusion, when Sensei Williams announced that they would be working on partner techniques, and told everyone to find someone roughly their size and skill level. Maya looked around hopefully. Derek immediately partnered with Tyler. Lisa grabbed Kevin. The remaining students quickly paired off, leaving Maya standing alone in the middle of the mat. "Looks like we have an odd number," Sensei Williams observed. "Maya, you can work with me today." It should have been an honor to train directly with the instructor, but Maya felt like a charity case. She could see Derek smirking as he whispered something to Tyler that made both men chuckle. The technique they were learning involved throws, which required trust between partners. Maya tried her best to follow Sensei Williams's instructions, but she was distracted by the feeling that everyone was watching her fail. "Relax," Sensei Williams said gently. "Tension makes everything harder. Trust the technique." Maya nodded and tried to let go of her anxiety, but it was hard when she could hear Derek's voice from across the mat. "Some people just don't have the natural ability," he was saying to Tyler, not bothering to lower his voice. "You can teach technique, but you can't teach instinct. Either you're a fighter or you're not." After class, Maya was gathering her things when Derek approached her. Tyler was right behind him, and Maya noticed that several other students had slowed their departure, lingering nearby as if sensing something was about to happen. "Hey, Maya," Derek said, his tone friendly but somehow threatening. "Can I give you some advice?" Maya looked up from stuffing her uniform into her bag. "Sure." "I've been doing this for 15 years, Derek said, crossing his arms over his chest. "Started when I was 12, got my black belt at 18. Been training seriously ever since. And in all that time, I've learned to spot the people who have what it takes and the people who don't." Maya's mouth went dry. "Okay. The thing is, martial arts isn't just about learning moves. It's about mindset. It's about being willing to face violence, to hurt someone if you have to push through pain and fear. It's not for everyone, and that's not a bad thing. There's no shame in admitting that maybe this isn't your path." Tyler nodded sagely. "Derek's right. Some people are just naturally more suited to, I don't know, book clubs or gardening or something like that." "I'm not trying to be mean," Derek continued, though his eyes suggested otherwise. "I'm just being honest. You seem like a really nice person, but nice doesn't always translate to effective, and this dojo has a reputation to maintain." Maya stood up slowly, her bag clutched in her hands. "I paid for a month of classes." Sure, Derek said. "Finish out your month. But after that, maybe consider whether this is really where you want to spend your time and money. There are lots of other activities that might be a better fit." As Maya walked to her car, she could hear Derek and Tyler talking behind her. "Think she got the message?" Tyler asked. "Give it another week or two," Derek replied. She'll figure out she doesn't belong here. Maya sat in her car for a long time before starting the engine. Her wrist still hurt from Lisa's demonstration, and her pride hurt even more. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was just fooling herself thinking she could do this. But as she drove home, something stubborn flickered in her chest. She had felt powerless for so long, during her marriage, during the divorce, in so many areas of her life. She wasn't ready to let Derek Stone make her feel that way again. Besides, she had noticed something the others hadn't. During that throw practice with Sensei Williams, there had been a moment, just a split second, where the movement had felt natural. Like her body remembered something her mind had forgotten. It was probably nothing. But Maya wasn't quite ready to give up yet. 2 months into her training, Maya had developed a strange relationship with the dojo. She dreaded walking through those doors, knowing she would face Derek's group and their constant undermining. But she also craved something she found on those mats, a feeling she couldn't quite name. It wasn't confidence yet, but it was the beginning of something. Her body was changing too. The soft edges from years of sitting behind a library desk were giving way to lean muscle. Her reflexes were getting sharper, though she tried not to let it show. Something told her it was better to keep flying under the radar. The problem was that Derek Stone wasn't content to let her fly anywhere. "You know what I think?" Derek said loudly during warm-ups, making sure his voice carried across the mat. "I think some people come to martial arts for the wrong reasons. They think it's going to magically fix their problems or make them into someone they're not." Maya kept her eyes down, focusing on her stretching. She had learned not to react to his comments, but they still stung. "Like if you're looking for therapy, there are therapists," Tyler added helpfully. "If you want to get in shape, there are gyms. But martial arts is about fighting, about being willing to hurt someone and get hurt yourself." Lisa nodded in agreement. "Some people just aren't built for that kind of reality." Sensei Williams clapped her hands. "All right, everyone, let's work on self-defense scenarios today. Real-world applications." Maya's stomach dropped. Self-defense classes were always the worst. They involved a lot of grabbing and throwing, which gave Derek's group plenty of opportunities to be rougher than necessary, while claiming it was realistic training. "I need volunteers for a demonstration," Sensei Williams announced. "Let's show proper technique for defending against a wrist grab from the front." Derek's hand shot up immediately. "I'll demonstrate the attack." "Great. Now I need someone to show the defense." Sensei Williams scanned the class and Maya tried to make herself invisible. "Maya, come up here. You've been working hard on these techniques." Maya's heart sank. She could feel Derek's smile from across the mat even before she looked up and saw it. This was not going to end well. "Perfect," Derek said as Maya reluctantly walked to the center of the mat. "This will be a great learning opportunity." Sensei Williams positioned them facing each other. "Okay, Derek, you're going to grab Maya's wrist like an attacker might. Maya, show us the escape we practiced last week. Remember, twist toward the thumb, step back, and break free." Derek reached out and took hold of Maya's wrist. His grip was firm but not painful. Yet, is that realistic, though? Derek asked Sensei Williams, though his eyes never left Maya's face. "I mean, if someone's really attacking, they're not going to grab you gently." "Well, for the demonstration," Sensei Williams began. "No, let's make it real," Derek interrupted, tightening his grip significantly. Maya winced as his fingers dug into her wrist. "This is how someone would actually grab you." Maya tried to execute the escape technique, twisting her wrist toward Derek's thumb like she had been taught. But his grip was too tight and the movement that should have freed her only caused more pain. "Come on," Derek said, his voice taking on a mocking tone. "A real attacker isn't going to let you go just because you ask nicely. You need to commit to the technique." He squeezed harder and Maya felt her fingers starting to go numb. This was beyond training. This was deliberately causing pain. "Derek," Sensei Williams said, a note of concern in her voice. "Maybe ease up a bit." "No, this is important," Derek said, his grip like a vice now. "Maya needs to understand what real violence feels like. She needs to know that martial arts isn't just some hobby for people going through a midlife crisis." Something shifted in Maya's mind. The pain in her wrist seemed to fade into the background, replaced by a cold, analytical clarity she hadn't felt in years. Her breathing slowed. Her stance subtly adjusted, weight settling into her legs in a way that would give her maximum leverage. For just a moment, Derek's grip felt like nothing. She could see exactly how to break it. Not with the simple technique they had been practicing, but with a sharp, precise movement that would not only free her wrist but likely send Derek to the ground with a damaged elbow. The knowledge was right there, muscle memory screaming at her to act. Maya's eyes met Derek's, and something flickered in them that made his confident smirk falter slightly. There was a hardness there, a coldness that seemed completely at odds with the timid woman he had been tormenting for weeks. But then Maya caught herself. The moment passed. Her posture went soft again. Her breathing became shallow and nervous. She was just the scared librarian again, trapped and helpless. "I can't," she said quietly, tugging weakly at Derek's grip. "It hurts too much." Derek's smile returned, wider than before. "See? This is what I'm talking about. When it comes down to it, when someone actually puts pressure on you, you just give up." He released her wrist with a dismissive gesture. Maya stumbled back, cradling her injured wrist. Red marks were already forming where Derek's fingers had been. "That's enough," Sensei Williams said firmly. But Derek was already moving away, satisfied with his demonstration. "I think we all learned something valuable here," Derek announced to the class. "Technique is useless if you don't have the mindset to back it up." The rest of the class passed in a blur. Maya went through the motions of the remaining exercises, but her mind was elsewhere. That moment of clarity of knowing exactly what to do, where had that come from? It felt like remembering something from a dream, vivid for an instant and then gone. During the cool-down stretches, Rebecca, the teenage greenbelt who was always kind to Maya, sidled over to her. "Are you okay?" she whispered. "That looked like it really hurt." Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. Her wrist was throbbing and she was pretty sure it would be swollen by morning. "Derek can be a real jerk sometimes," Rebecca continued quietly. "He thinks because he's been here the longest he owns the place. But Sensei Williams is the one in charge, not him." After class, Maya was packing her things when she overheard Derek talking to his usual group near the front desk. "Did you see her face when I really grabbed her?" Derek was saying with obvious satisfaction. "All that tough girl act just melted away. Some people need to learn their limitations the hard way." "Think she'll finally quit?" Tyler asked. "Oh, she'll quit," Derek replied confidently. "Might take another week or two, but she'll quit. People like her always do when things get real." Maya finished packing her bag and headed for the door, but Derek's voice stopped her. "Hey, Maya," he called out. "Everything okay? You look a little shaken up." She turned to face him, and for a split second that cold clarity flickered in her eyes again. Derek actually took a half-step back before Maya's expression returned to its usual anxious uncertainty. "I'm fine," she said quietly. "Just tired." "Well, get some rest," Derek said, his tone mockingly concerned. "This training can be pretty demanding, especially for people who aren't used to intensity." Maya nodded and walked out to her car. Her wrist was starting to swell, and she would need to ice it when she got home. Tomorrow she would have to explain to Lily why Mommy's arm was bruised. As she sat in her car, Maya examined her wrist in the dome light. The marks were clear evidence of what had happened, but she knew there was no point in complaining. Derek would just say he was making the training realistic, and who would believe her over a 15-year veteran of the dojo? But something had changed tonight. For just a moment she had felt something she thought was buried forever, a part of her that knew how to fight back, how to hurt someone who was hurting her. The smart thing would be to quit, to walk away before Derek escalated things further, to find somewhere safer, easier, where she could build confidence without having to face down bullies. Maya started her car and pulled out of the parking lot, but instead of feeling defeated, she felt something else stirring inside her. Curiosity. Where had that moment of clarity come from, and what would happen if she stopped holding it back? Maya had been training for 3 months now, and the bruise on her wrist from Derek's demonstration had finally faded. But something inside her had changed that night. She found herself paying attention to things she had tried to ignore before. The way people moved, where the exits were, how to position herself for maximum advantage. Old habits were hard to break, even when you spent years trying to forget them. Tonight's class had been particularly brutal. Sensei Williams was at a tournament with some of the junior students, leaving the advanced class to train on their own. Derek had appointed himself the unofficial instructor for the evening, which meant 2 hours of him showing off and making Maya's life miserable. "Let's work on some advanced sparring drills," Derek announced to the group. "Real contact, full intensity, the way we used to train before." He glanced meaningfully at Maya. "Before we had to worry about people getting their feelings hurt." Maya had partnered with Rebecca for most of the exercises, grateful for the teenager's patience and kindness. But as the class wound down and people began cleaning up the equipment, Maya realized she had left her water bottle in the small storage room behind the main training area. The storage room was cramped and dimly lit, filled with spare mats, training equipment, and tournament trophies from years past. Maya found her water bottle on a shelf and was turning to leave when Derek appeared in the doorway. "There you are," he said, blocking her exit. "I've been wanting to talk to you." Tyler appeared behind Derek, then Lisa and Kevin. All four of them were standing in the narrow doorway, effectively trapping Maya in the small room. "About what?" Maya asked, though she had a sinking feeling she already knew. "About your future here," Derek said, stepping into the room. The others followed, and suddenly the space felt very small and very threatening. "See, we've been patient. We've tried to give you hints, but you don't seem to be getting the message." Maya's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice steady. "What message is that? That you don't belong here," Tyler said bluntly. "This isn't a therapy session or a feel-good fitness class. This is serious martial arts training. And you're bringing down the whole dojo," Lisa added. "People are starting to talk. They're saying we'll take anyone now, no matter how weak or pathetic." Maya looked past them to the doorway. There was no way out except through them, and they knew it. Her old training kicked in automatically, cataloging threats and calculating distances. Derek was the biggest and strongest, but he was also overconfident. Tyler was fast but relied too much on his reach. Lisa was technically skilled but had a tendency to drop her guard after combinations. Kevin was the wild card. She hadn't seen enough of his fighting style to predict his moves. "I just want to train," Maya said quietly. "I'm not bothering anyone, but you are bothering us," Derek said, taking another step closer. "Your very presence here is an insult to everyone who's earned their place through blood and sweat." He reached out and grabbed her shoulder, not gently. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to quit. Tonight. You're going to walk out of here and never come back." Maya looked down at his hand on her shoulder. "And if I don't?" Derek's grip tightened. "Then we're going to have to convince you. Nothing too serious, just enough to help you understand that this world isn't for people like you." "People like me?" Maya asked, and something in her tone made Tyler shift nervously. "Weak people," Derek said. "Scared people. People who fold the moment someone applies real pressure." That's when Derek made his mistake. He spun Maya around and pushed her against the wall, pinning her there with his forearm across her chest. It was meant to intimidate, to show her how helpless she was. Instead, it triggered every defensive instinct Maya had spent years trying to suppress. The change happened so fast that none of them saw it coming. One moment, Maya was the timid librarian being bullied by four martial artists. The next moment, Derek was face down on the floor with his arm twisted behind his back in a submission hold that had him tapping frantically against the mat. Maya had moved like lightning. Derek's aggressive grab had given her the perfect opening. She had trapped his arm, stepped to the side, and used his own momentum to send him crashing down. The whole sequence had taken maybe 2 seconds. Tyler lunged forward to help his friend, but Maya was already moving. She released Derek and flowed into Tyler's attack, redirecting his energy and sending him stumbling into a stack of training pads. Before he could recover, she had swept his legs and put him on the ground next to Derek. Lisa and Kevin froze, staring in shock at their two friends groaning on the floor. Maya straightened up slowly, her breathing still controlled and steady. The timid, apologetic woman they had been tormenting was gone, replaced by someone who moved with the fluid precision of years of combat training. "You want to know about people like me?" Maya said, her voice calm but carrying an edge of steel that made all four of them go very still. "People like me spent 8 years in the army. People like me trained in combatives, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and Krav Maga before most of you even knew what martial arts were." Derek was struggling to get up, his face red with embarrassment and pain. "That's impossible." "You're just a what?" Maya interrupted. "Just a librarian? Just a divorced mom? Just someone you thought you could push around?" She helped Tyler to his feet with movements that were professional and controlled, then did the same for Derek. Neither of them tried to resist. "I was deployed twice," Maya continued, adjusting her guy with practiced efficiency. "I taught hand-to-hand combat to Marines. I competed in mixed martial arts tournaments before I got married and decided to leave that life behind. Lisa found her voice first. But, but you were so bad at everything. You couldn't even hold a horse stance. Maya smiled, and for the first time since they had known her, it reached her eyes. A back injury ended my competitive career. I spent 2 years relearning how to move without pain. When I came here, I just wanted to see if I could fall in love with martial arts again without the pressure and the competition and the constant need to prove myself. You've been faking it? Kevin asked, sounding almost hurt. This whole time? Not faking, Maya said. Healing. There's a difference. I wanted to start over, to remember why I loved training in the first place. I thought if I came in as a beginner, I could rediscover that joy without carrying all the baggage from my past. Derek was staring at her like he was seeing a ghost. But you were so weak, so scared. I was scared, Maya admitted. Scared that if I let that part of myself out, I wouldn't be able to put it back. Scared that I'd become someone my daughter wouldn't recognize. I left the military because I was tired of violence, tired of always being ready to hurt someone. She looked around the small room at their shocked faces. But you know what I realized tonight? There's a difference between being violent and being able to protect yourself, between being aggressive and refusing to be a victim. Tyler was rubbing his shoulder where he had hit the training pads. So you could have stopped Derek anytime you wanted? From day one, Maya said simply. Every single time he grabbed me too hard, every time he accidentally bumped into me, every time he tried to intimidate me. I could have ended it in seconds, then why didn't you? Derek demanded, his voice hoarse. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Because I was hoping I wouldn't have to. Because I wanted to believe there was a place in the world where I could just be Maya the librarian, not Staff Sergeant Maya Rodriguez, veteran of 2 tours and former regional MMA champion. The silence in the room was deafening. Everything they thought they knew about her had been turned upside down in the space of 30 seconds. So what happens now? Lisa asked quietly. Maya adjusted her belt and headed for the door. Now I go home to my daughter. And next week I come back for class. But things are going to be different. She paused in the doorway and looked back at them. I tried to fit into your world quietly. I tried to be small and invisible and not cause problems. But you wouldn't let me. So now we do this my way. As Maya walked out of the storage room, Derek called after her. What's your way? She turned back one last time and they saw something in her eyes that made them all take an unconscious step backward. Respect, she said simply, for everyone who walks through those doors, regardless of their belt color or their background or how long they've been training. Because that's what real martial arts is about. Maya left them standing in the storage room, staring after her in stunned silence. Outside in the main dojo, she could hear the sounds of the few remaining students finishing up their training. For the first time in 3 months, Maya felt like she belonged there. News traveled fast in a small dojo. By the time Maya arrived for Thursday's class 3 days after the storage room incident, everyone knew something had happened. She could feel the eyes on her as she changed into her GI, could hear the whispered conversations that stopped when she walked by. Derek was already on the mat when she entered the training area, but something was different. The usual swagger was gone, replaced by a quiet uncertainty that made him look younger somehow. Tyler, Lisa, and Kevin were there too, but they kept their distance, watching Maya with a mixture of wariness and curiosity. Sensei Williams called the class to attention, and Maya took her usual spot at the back. But this time nobody avoided standing near her. If anything, some of the other students seemed eager to be closer to the woman who had taken down 2 black belts in a matter of seconds. Before we begin tonight, Sensei Williams announced, I understand there was an incident earlier this week while I was away. Derek, would you like to address the class? Derek's face flushed, but he stepped forward. Yeah, I owe everyone an apology, especially Maya. He looked directly at her for the first time since that night. I was wrong about a lot of things. About what it means to be strong. About who belongs here. About what martial arts is really supposed to teach us. He took a deep breath. Maya, I'm sorry. For everything. The way I treated you was completely out of line, and I hope you'll give me a chance to make it right. Maya nodded, accepting the apology with grace. Thank you, Derek. That means a lot. There's something else, Derek continued, his voice getting stronger. I talked to Sensei Williams, and I think the dojo could benefit from having Maya help with instruction. Her background and experience could teach all of us a lot. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the class. Rebecca, the teenage greenbelt who had always been kind to Maya, raised her hand. I'd love to learn from someone who actually taught in the military. Me too, said James, a brown belt who had always been polite but distant. I feel like we've been missing out on some serious knowledge. Sensei Williams smiled. Actually, I've been thinking the same thing. Maya, would you be interested in co-leading our women's self-defense workshop next month, and maybe helping with some advanced tactical training? Maya felt a warmth spread through her chest. This was what she had been hoping for when she first walked through those doors. A chance to belong, to contribute, to share her knowledge, without having to carry the weight of her past, alone. I'd be honored, she said. The rest of the class had a different energy than any Maya had experienced since starting her training. When they partnered up for drills, Derek approached her hesitantly. Would you mind working with me tonight? He asked. I feel like I have a lot to learn. Maya studied his face and saw genuine humility there. Of course. As they worked through the techniques, Maya found herself naturally slipping into instructor mode. She corrected Derek's form gently, showed him more efficient ways to generate power, shared insights from her years of experience. Your footwork is good, she told him, but you're telegraphing your punches. Try to keep your shoulders more relaxed until the moment of impact. Derek followed her advice eagerly, like a white belt learning his first techniques. How did you get so good at reading people's movements? He asked. 8 years of training people to stay alive, Maya said simply. You learn to spot weaknesses and bad habits pretty quickly when someone's life might depend on it. Tyler had been listening from nearby, and he approached during a water break. Maya, can I ask you something? Sure. That first day when I was your partner for the basic drills, you were really struggling. Was that all an act? Maya shook her head. No, that was real. My back injury changed everything about how I move. I had to relearn basic techniques, build up my strength and flexibility again. In a lot of ways, I really was a beginner. But you seemed so timid, Lisa added, joining the conversation. Because I was, Maya admitted, not physically timid, but emotionally. I'd spent so many years being Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, the tough instructor who never showed weakness. When my marriage fell apart and I had to start over as a single mom, I wanted to find out who Maya the person was, separate from Maya the soldier. Kevin nodded thoughtfully. So you really were just trying to heal? Exactly. I thought if I could start from scratch, maybe I could fall in love with martial arts again instead of just seeing it as a tool for violence. The conversation was interrupted by Sensei Williams calling everyone back to training. For the final exercise, she had the class work on self-defense scenarios, the same type of training that had led to Maya's revelation. Maya, would you mind demonstrating some real-world applications? Sensei Williams asked. Show us how the techniques we practice actually work in dangerous situations. Maya found herself in the center of the mat, surrounded by students who were now looking at her with respect and genuine interest instead of skepticism. The most important thing to remember, she began, falling naturally into her old teaching rhythm, is that the best self-defense is avoiding dangerous situations entirely. But when you can't avoid them, your training needs to be automatic. She demonstrated several techniques explaining not just the mechanics but the psychology behind them, how to read an attacker's body language, how to create opportunities to escape, when to fight and when to run. Derek volunteered to help Winnow. Thought the demonstrations, and Maya was impressed by how seriously he was taking everything. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a student's eagerness to learn. One more thing, Maya said as the formal training session ended. Martial arts isn't about being the toughest person in the room. It's about having the confidence to walk away from fights you don't need to have, and the ability to protect yourself and others when you can't walk away. After class, as students were changing and heading home, Rebecca approached Maya. Thank you, the teenager said quietly. For what? For showing us what real strength looks like. I was starting to think martial arts was just about intimidating people and proving how tough you are. Maya smiled, remembering herself at that age. It took me a long time to learn the difference between being strong and acting strong. One comes from confidence and skill, the other comes from fear and insecurity. Derek overheard and walked over, still looking somewhat sheepish. Maya, I know I have a lot to make up for, but I was wondering, would you maybe help me with my teaching? I realize I've been approaching it all wrong. What do you mean? I've been trying to make people prove they're worthy of being here instead of helping them become worthy of being here. I think you could teach me how to do it right. Maya considered this. It won't be easy. Changing your whole approach to teaching means changing how you think about strength and leadership. I'm willing to learn, Derek said earnestly. I want to be the kind of martial artist who makes the dojo better, not someone who drives good people away. 3 weeks later, Maya stood at the front of the women's self-defense workshop, looking out at a room full of women from all walks of life. Some were experienced martial artists, others had never thrown a punch in their lives. Derek was there too, assisting and learning, his whole demeanor transformed. Before we start, Maya announced, I want everyone to know that this is a safe space. No judgment, no competition, just learning and supporting each other. As the workshop progressed, Maya watched the participants grow in confidence. She saw scared women become empowered ones. Timid beginners discover their inner strength. Experienced fighters learn new perspectives on their art. It was everything she had hoped martial arts could be when she first walked into the dojo 6 months ago. After the workshop ended and the participants had left, Sensei Williams approached Maya. You know, she said, I've been thinking about expanding our programs. Maybe adding more community outreach, self-defense for seniors, programs for at-risk youth. Would you be interested in heading up something like that? Maya looked around the dojo that had become her second home, at the people who had become her extended family, at Derek, who was carefully organizing equipment with the same attention he now brought to everything. I'd love to, she said. As Maya drove home that evening, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. She had come looking for healing, and had found something even better, a way to use her skills and experience to help others while rediscovering her own love for martial arts. Her daughter Lily was waiting at home with homework questions and stories about her day. As Maya helped her with math problems and listened to tales of playground drama, she realized she had finally found the balance she had been seeking. She was still Staff Sergeant Rodriguez when the situation called for it. She was still Maya the librarian when her daughter needed help with school. But now she was also Maya the instructor, Maya the mentor, Maya the woman who helped others find their strength. And for the first time in years, all those parts of herself felt like they belonged to the same person.